Now, I will give a caveat. I will give a caveat because I don't think anything should be 100% no. So let me give you the caveat on that shorting. I'm never going to do it, but everyone has their different style. And I do try to at least incorporate that. And you guys have seen me incorporate that. You know, this is what I do. Here's the reason why I do it. But if you are going to do it, try to. So let me give you the consider this when it comes to shorting the markets. Going to trade crypto, do it this way. Consider this. So, it basically falls under the same kind of advice that you want to first make your money in your economic events. Like that's our steady income, right? We have the steady profit system where we're trading the economic events, the quarterly earnings, and any corporate releases. That's our standard momentum trades. And then we have this concept of house money where we take 20% and then we get back into the markets, you know, and if we lose it, no problem. We locked in the 80% profit. Well, you can incorporate shorting in that 20%. Only. And I would even maybe take another percentage of that. Maybe take half of the 20% and then put it into a short. You see what I'm saying? So it needs to be a percentage of a percentage of a percentage to protect your capital. So if you end up losing that, no problem. If you end up making it, you're just banking it back into your reserves. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, get like a like a little redheaded stepchild account.
Yeah, but it should only be set up in with those levels of safety and protection. If you're trying to take just regular, you know, capital into the markets, I think about that video that a bit posted last year when everybody tried to short Tesla. Three, two, one. I think about that every single time I talk about shorting the markets because that is the majority of what happens. And even at that 7 o'clock, right? We can keep trading that. And I'm gonna tell you why. Let me give you a scenario why it may be a problem. Because people don't know how to just keep it the same. Like just show up at 7 o'clock every day, trade $300, trade $1,000. Keep a system, but no, that's not how we do. We're gonna come in $100 the first day, and then we're gonna get comfortable that we've been doing this for a whole month. Oh, let me put in $1,000, and that is the trap. We're gonna keep getting a bigger and bigger, and then what's gonna happen is you end up losing all of your gains because you keep doubling into it. Oh, this is a perfect system, and that's just how the institutions work. They're gonna let you keep making that money, thinking that you're comfortable. And I think about the Venus flytrap. You're sitting in the mouth of the plant, chilling. I'll even tell you this: I've seen videos where they will put a mouse inside of a snake's like aquarium. I forgot what they call it for a snake, but it's basically like a fish tank. But they have a different name for it for snakes. But if you have a pet snake, I've seen people drop like rodents inside of the snake tank, and the snake will keep it there for days. Like they buddy. What's up? Waking up in the morning, snuggling, and that mouse has no idea what's coming. And that's what they do with you in the markets. What's up? What's up, my friend? Welcome to 7 o'clock. Make that money. And you're gonna keep making it. And then that one day, you end up losing your gains or losing your original capital. And some of you have probably already experienced this. But let me give you the other side of it. Because trading is about discipline. Trading is about sticking to your rules. And that's something else that we kind of psychologically we look to test those rules. We look to test those boundaries. Even as children, we tested the boundaries of our parents. That's just natural. We're going to test the boundaries. Don't go outside the house. Be home before dark. We tested it. Don't do this. Don't do that. We tested it to see what we can get away with. And that's just the natural progression of the human psyche. We're going to test out. And if we continue to break those rules little by little by little, before you know it, you're shorting everything, especially if you're successful. Aaron doesn't know what he's talking about. And now you're out there shorting everything. You're not just shorting the 7 o'clock. You have completely abandoned that rule. You see the benefit of it. Oh man, I'm just going to do this. That's the part that you don't consider. But I give you that because if you want to test it out, if you need that life lesson, if you don't want to completely listen to the billionaires because they didn't short, they don't use leverage. Leverage is built into it. Shorting is a scam, and I proved that to you that they give out more than available. So, like I said, I'm not going to use it. I know the pitfalls. I'm going to stick with the billionaires' advice, but I have given you a little what if you want to test it out and try to implement it. Just be, and like I said, when you do get into those kind of situations, you have to keep those levels of protection, those rules in place, and maintain them. And understand that this is the only caveat. This is the only outlier that I'm going to allow this rule to be broken. And then when I am breaking it, here are my other rules in place to make sure that I'm still protected. And then when that system or that time period or whatever is over, you snatch it back, you put it back in regular rotation, and you're done. I just want to go over that entire scenario so everybody understands that I'm not advocating for you to go out there and short the market, but I don't want to invoke my complete style on you. You got to kind of develop your own. And I do want to give you the parameters or the psychology behind it so that if you do venture out in that way, you may still be able to benefit.
Good morning, Eric. I have not been able to get on consistently on YouTube this week, but I hope that you're able to go to my TikTok to get the rest of the challenge if you are doing the challenge. Today's the last day of the challenge. So if you missed any days, go to my TikTok, Life IQ, and you can get all the days. All 30 days are there. 30 plus days at this point because I miscounted. All right, so um, let me go ahead and give you this part as well. We're gonna do the economic event starting tomorrow, and that's the beautiful part about today going over the tariffs because we can figure out how that's gonna affect all of the economic events coming up. But we're not doing any economic events until tomorrow with the ADP employment. I'm hoping you. Well, let me share. I did come off of it. So we're going to start tomorrow, and we do know how this works, right? This is the week that I trade, with everything in place. Prime example, right? We see all of the unemployment from Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I let the Wednesday go. I've shown you this secret, this little hack. So even though we're going to analyze the ADP employment tomorrow, we're not going to trade it. But I am going to go over it, but don't worry. I know our calendar, I know our schedule of events. We're still good, but we will be doing that tomorrow morning. But today it's all about tariffs, making sure that we understand the impact that the tariffs will have. All right. If you guys have any articles, anything you've seen, any perceptions, any commentary on different ways that you think the tariffs are going to affect the markets or the global economy, I am open. That's just going to start the discussion.
Coach, how long do you think, that's my number one question. How long do you think before the tariffs, affect prices here at home?
He made some statements yesterday to kind of qualify his purpose of the tariffs. And it's the first time that he did it. because he said there's no going back. Like there's no more negotiations. And I think that's the reason why the markets are falling so much, because the actual tariffs are in place. So now when the markets are falling, it's legitimate. Everything before this was all speculation. It was all sentiment. So the market's falling now is real. It's real. It's not speculation. So and he qualified why he's doing it. He said, and this is what goes back to when I say that he wants the US to benefit first and then to be able to control who else benefits. So he says he's trying to get all of the US corporations to have everything done in the US, but we already know that that can't happen because, and we saw what we talked about yesterday with the farming. We can't pay people. We don't have the ability to pay people because, and this is something else that the analysts have been talking about, is that it's cheaper for the corporations to pay the tariffs. You're not doing anything. You don't have the leverage you think you do, because it's still cheaper for the corporations to pay the tariffs than to pay US workers to do it. Facts, irrefutable. So I don't know what he's thinking. And this is the thing that I keep telling you. You have the smartest people. Well, you know, hold on. Let me suck that back into my head. Most presidents usually have the most intelligent people in their cabinet. But we've seen that this man does not really focus on credentials. This man just fired the most dedicated general in the history of you know, what, not history, but in the current military, and in every single military unit, every single military branch. He fired the most dedicated person. He got rid of the smartest person in the room. So he's not interested in having the smartest people. Plus, because of his ego, he's not going to accept the advice of the most intelligent people. Because I promise you, there are economists, strategists, financial advisors that are telling him this is not the way to go. This is not the best thing. This is not going to work the way you think it is. Oh, yes, it is. So the answer to your question is it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop, because as long as the corporations, because what they're doing right now, just like the interest rates coming out, what do the corporations do when the interest rates come out? When the Fed rate comes out, they're adjusting. They're coming out with new budgets, new expenses, new production plans. They're readjusting based on the current climate, the current policies that are in place. So they're doing the same thing with the tariffs. Okay, now here are the tariffs in place. We have to recalculate our profits. We have to recalculate our expenses, our costs. You know, we got to recalculate our prices to the consumers. So it's not going to stop, because once again, it's cheaper for them to pay the tariffs than to hire people in the US. Now, here's the other thing. That we even though we build, here's a very important part. And I got this. I'm gonna find the video from the news girl, because she posted about this yesterday in her video. Let me go ahead and get that now as I explain it. But she basically says that the components, the parts, you know, we know the raw materials are coming from other countries. That's a given. But we also have, Mexico, South America, um, or Southeast Asia, especially with the tech in Southeast Asia. A lot of our components, a lot of our parts are coming from other countries. So there are tariffs on those parts, on those transistors, on those chips, on a carburetor, on the, in any of these things that are coming in, the thread for fabric, whatever it is. Every single component is being assembled in another country, and then when they bring those parts over, we have to pay tariffs on it, and then they build it in the US. So you're still not getting the the outcome that you're looking for. It's still cheaper to make those components in another country, and this is what I say. I explained this whole thing about he should probably use something more like the sanctions, but he thinks. Oh, and I wanted to find that article. He still thinks. Let me find this article. He still thinks that the U.S. is not paying. Let me find this quote. Somebody asked him, like, and he says no, the U.S. government pays for it. Let me see if I can find this. Let me see if I can find this, dude. Let me go to my history. But a reporter did ask him about the tariffs. He was like, no, the government's going to pay for it. Now, I think he knows better, but he doesn't want to admit. Is this the one? Give me a second. Yeah, the Independent asked him a question. I want to see if I can find the video.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hilarious. Oh, no, the government's going to pay for it. Independent news tariff question. Question to Trump. Let's see if I can find this video. I'm gonna post it in the because for some reason you guys can't hear the audio when I play a video inside the Zoom. So let's see if I can find the video. I can just go to video tab. Give me a second. If I can't find it, on YouTube or something, I'll post, and I think that's probably a better thing to do. Let me post the YouTube, the TikTok video. Give me a second. All right, so we charge them, you charge them, but he says the tariffs are paid by Americans. I'm narrating the whole video for you guys. It's so funny. But the U.S. pays for the tariffs. And here's his response. No, they're not. They're paid for by the country.
Oh, God.
No, they're not. They're paid for by the country. And he very quickly, after he answered the question, next question, the dude's a freaking idiot, man. And this lends to my analysis that I think the man knows what he's doing. And I said this, I think he's trying to get rid of the middle class. I literally think he's trying to wipe out the middle class, where you're either dirt poor or extremely rich. Dirt poor or extremely rich. He's trying to wipe out the middle class and putting in these kind of, and this is what I kind of want to talk about today. And we talked about it a little bit yesterday with wiping out the farms. He's getting rid of, he's raising prices on everything in the economy, including the inflation. Think about this. If he raises all the prices of every consumer product and he raises the strength of or lowers the strength of the dollar, the buying power of the dollar, dude. And I'm going to tell you the number one thing that's going to happen. Like I said, this is all the causal sequence of the tariffs. People are going to go out and have to get 2 and 3 jobs. Think about it. If you're no longer going to be able to afford living. Now, keep in mind, they still haven't raised minimum wage. So we're still sitting at the same minimum wage 20 years ago. Now, everything, go ahead.
For some states.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, it's not a federal mandate. The federal government has this standard. But believe me, I think there's I did the numbers. There's about 7 or 8 out of the 50 that have raised it. But it's not a federal, because that's what it's called, the Federal Reserve, federal minimum wage. So the
Mhm.
federal government has not made it a standard yet. We're still sitting at that low end 20 years ago. So think about that. If that is the average of what people are making, what is it? Does anybody know what the minimum wage is at this point? Has it even gone over $10 yet? I think it's still sitting at
I
about
know 725. I think. I'm not sure.
7.25. Yep. So that's going to cause people to have to go out. And some people are right now still has 2 jobs. I know I've talked to some of you guys. Some of you had 3
Yep.
jobs. And I think that is what he's looking to do. Get the slaves working. Because I explained that to you last week, that we're all slaves to the system. So he's trying to get more people to slave for the system. Go out there and get a 3rd job. But yeah, check out that video, guys. I laughed as soon as I saw it. Oh no, that's not true. That's not true. The government, the country's gonna pay for it. And you know
Yes.
what? He said the right word. He says the country's gonna pay for it. He didn't say the government. Ah,
The
the
evil
country is
puppet.
gonna pay for it. Go ahead.
He's an evil puppet.
we do know that he is definitely being controlled by somebody else.
Yeah, more than one hand is up there.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, his hand. Somebody got their hand up up his spine. Controlling everything. Definitely that.
Well, I have a friend that just she was an IRS employee. They got rid of 400 of them. If you didn't have a year, you still in probation. You got fired, laid off. So
Say that
this is the
again.
real stuff. She 400 people, 400 IRS workers at her company. I mean her place got fired.
Yeah.
If you didn't have a year, then they let you go.
And that's the other thing. And that's the other thing where I say that he's creating this divide, because he is creating unemployment. Because I told you the number one employer in the US is the US government is the number one employer. So now he's literally he's creating the unemployment. And remember, we had the strongest labor market in 50 years. And that man came in with a brand new policy laying off. He's volunteering people. Because think about it. He's bribing people to take the time off. We're going to pay you where you don't even have to work. We're going to pay you to quit. What? He's creating unemployment. I'm
And
still
if
trying to go ahead. I'm still trying to figure it out.
states follow unemployment, you know how they like blood and disaster before they even consider dropping the Fed rate a quarter. And if he's doing that and the Fed rate does drop, man, we will never hear the end of it.
Well, at this point, he's creating inflation. And I promise you, that is the number one reason why Powell is not even considering lowering interest rates. This man knows his job. This man knows what Trump is doing. He's not going to announce it because he knows his word is power. And if he says anything in the wrong direction, the markets may fall too early. He's trying to hold the wind back as much as possible. But he knows the same thing that I know, that you guys know, that every single decision Trump is doing is creating inflation, and he's going to have to raise the interest rates back up to battle the inflation. That's what he was doing for the last 3 or 4 years because of the stimulus that Trump gave during the pandemic. And they were even considering that. Let's go ahead and start giving out stimulus money. Like you didn't learn from your last term. If you throw money into the economy, I explained to you what inflation is. Even in the challenge, we broke it down that inflation is the buying power. And when they throw money into the supply chain, the supply and demand, If they oversaturate the money supply, that's going to lower the value of the money, like any other commodity. So if you're injecting a bunch of money into the system by, giving stimulus, giving people severance packages, you're creating the inflation. And now Powell has to raise the rates back up to try to battle it. Like I say, guys, this is all we're discussing today. The different ways that the tariffs are going to affect the markets and the economy. I can't find the video for the news lady. If I find it a little bit later, I'll post it for you guys. But she kind of broke down a little bit of how the tariffs would work. I may have to go to her actual page. Oh, here it is. I'm going to go ahead and post this now too. No, that's the BOI. That's the BOI. Let me see if I can find the other one. Yeah, here it is. Let me go ahead and post this too. All right. Do you guys have any other thing that you see that the tariffs are going to be affecting? Well, and let me kind of interject this very quickly. Technically, the crypto is not involved in this, and I think that was done on purpose. Is that Trump drove, knowing that the markets were going to fall, Trump injected that statement to make sure crypto was not involved in the drop. Any thoughts on that?
Mm.
You think that it's by coincidence that he knew those tariffs was going to drop the markets, but I can't have my precious crypto falling, so we're going to do a strategic reserve, sending it in the other direction.
Definitely calculated. He has too much invested in crypto. He thought of that ahead of time.
Well, but it's also the other thing that he has an obligation to the people, to his donors. His backers were mostly crypto heads. So he has an obligation to make sure they profit. Now, that was something else that somebody said. I think it was Schiff in that video that's posted in the student room. He basically said, because this is basically what he's talking about, is that he had to make sure that his donors got paid. But he qualified it that it's not Trump's fault if they don't sell. If they don't sell to make their profit, if they want to be greedy, then that's not Trump's fault. Trump can always say, well, I drove the markets up. If you didn't take your profits, that's not my fault. But Trump knows that at this point, like I said, just looking at how he did the first term with the tweets and the different things that he was doing, he knows that every single post that he does, every single announcement he makes, every single executive order he does, he knows that it's going to impact the stock market. And if you don't think that he has somebody with an offshore account, that's insider trading, you got another thing coming. But these are the things that most people won't see. You try to explain that to a crypto head. No. That's real value, man. We're going to get a strategic reserve. Stop it. Look at Argentina and El Salvador. El Salvador just reversed their connection to the crypto. There are even more scams. And then it came out that the same guy that was doing the Argentina was behind the Trump and the Melania coin. They also got heavily sniped. There's no, and this is one of those things that if Trump tried to actually implement something like that, right now he just made the announcement. But if he tried to do an executive order on that, you want to see Congress shut that down so quick. That will be on the floor the next day. They would nip that executive order next day, next business day. And you guys understand how Congress works. A lot of people in Congress don't even show up. When they do the votes, there's usually only about 55 to 65% of the people actually voting. You will see about 85 to 90% of people come back to vote for that law. We're not doing anything with that. The only thing that I can see coming out of it, and I'm for this. Sometimes you can get an accidental, right? Sometimes accidentally something can go right. So I can see maybe Trump does kind of push it, right, for his crypto donors. He tries to push something like that. Let's get crypto involved with the sovereign wealth fund and all of this. That might actually push Congress to regulate the markets. That would be wonderful. I don't see that happening because if they were to regulate it, Trump would lose his power. Trump would no longer be able to control the markets. But that's the only thing I can see come out of that they may have to, regulate it. And there is discussion. There is discussion. I showed you this article last week that they're trying to figure out which department, which agency should regulate it. And they've always pushed for the CFTC. Nobody wants it to be a security. They want it to be a commodity, which doesn't make sense. Because for it to be a commodity, there has to be a tangible value. And crypto is not tangible. It cannot be a commodity. But for some reason, that's where they want it positioned. They want the CFTC to control it. But outside of that, guys, do you guys see any other causal sequences? We've kind of gone over unemployment. We've gone over consumer spending. I saw Bloomberg this morning was talking about Trump is pushing OPEC to produce more. Trump now has an issue because we get the majority of our imported oil from Canada, and we get about another maybe 10% from Mexico. Well, that's now being taxed. There's tariffs on that. So the U.S. is now looking for other, and this is what I even said, last week, that the U.S. is going to have to go other places because they now have a strained relationship with their NAFTA agreement. So that they now have to go to other places to try to figure out where they can make up for anything that they're missing from Canada and Mexico. So Trump is going to OPEC, whatever leverage he may have there, and he's trying to get them to produce more oil. So, and then once again, any of that oil. Now, that oil is not coming to the U.S. Like I said, we get the majority of our oil. We used to get it from Russia, but ever since the Ukraine war, we cut that pipeline off. I think we were getting like another 20% of oil from Russia. So the only solution I see with that is they may have to open up the reserves. They may have to open up our own production. That's the only thing that I see as a causal sequence. If we are having those tariff issues, he may have to open up the caps. There's a term for it, but there's a law in place on how much crude oil can be pumped per day on every single pump. So he may have to open that up and increase the maximum. So that's what I see happening with the oil. I see interest rates kind of maintaining itself. But think about this with the consumer spending. I don't see. I see, consumer spending is going to go down, right? And then we also see already with the housing market, because we don't have the lumber, we don't have the steel, we don't have the aluminum, and whatever other materials are needed, housing market is going to go down. This is all tariff, guys. Our housing market is going to go down. We already see the effects of it. So once again, I believe for the banks to make up, because they're not selling as many houses, they're not, they don't have as many loans. The credit card companies are not getting as much spending. So they're going to have to increase the rate. Interest rates are going to go up to make up for the volume of their revenue. Any thoughts on this? I love the fact that we don't have to look at charts. Nobody's pulling up a chart looking at levels. We're not slapping stochastic and Bollinger Bands. This is the real markets. Sitting down, taking the time. We have a new policy in place, no speculation. And I've been talking about this for weeks. We only worry about it when it becomes real. It's real. So if you just take the challenge when I showed you, learning basic economics, learning the two forms, the causal sequence, learning the two destinations of value and supply and demand. And then now we're, all this week, we're now analyzing for that final outcome of supply and demand and market value. That's exactly what we're doing. And this is going to be an ongoing thing, because every single new announcement, every single new partnership agreement, trade agreement, all of it, we're going to have to readjust. But just make sure that it's currently in place, not just being talked about. And the reason why this is going to be so volatile is it's going to change day for day. People are going to change their trade agreements. They're going to change their partnerships. There are strained relationships everywhere. People are choosing sides. Now, here's something else. Here's something interesting, guys. And I wanted to talk about this yesterday, but we didn't have enough time. So I'm going to introduce it now, and I'm going to go look up. I've been kind of holding back looking up that fifth person. So I saw a video on TikTok that says that it's like the 5 families of the mafia. Trump is kind of involved with the 5 families of the mafia. And I'm like, oh man, that's what I've been saying. And somebody also echoed the extortion that I mentioned. I saw this in a video that they're extorting Zelensky. I was not the only one that came up with that when I told you that yesterday. Somebody said the same thing. Well, but they applied it to Canada. There was a female that was applying it to Canada, that it's extortion, because they're telling Canada, oh, you need our protection. And then the girl, she's from Canada, she says, we only need protection from one person. There's, in history of Canada, there has been only one country that has ever attacked Canada. It was the US. So who do we need protection from? You're offering us protection. We're gonna charge you this and charge you that and tariff this, all that. Oh, that's for protection. Protection from what? Protection from who? The only person, because Canada is probably the most docile country in the world. They don't have any enemies. The only enemies that they have is when they back the US. They have backed the US in every single conflict. But standing by themselves, Canada is one of the most docile countries in the world. They don't have any enemies. So they were like, well, who do we need protection from? And that's why she called it extortion.
I saw that video. You're absolutely correct, because before he came here, he was meeting with, he was at Davos meeting with corporations, and then he met with the international community, and Trudeau and the rest of those guys were all patting each other, hugging each other. So he's definitely extorted,
Extortion.
completely
And
compromised.
that's because keep in mind, let's give some background, guys. Trump grew up in New York. And when Trump was building all of that real estate back in the 80s, built into that system were unions. Can anybody tell me who controlled the unions back in the 80s in New York?
Mafia.
You got it, my friend. So Trump could not build anything unless he had to deal directly with the mafia. And he knew he was dealing with the mafia. He was paying things on the back end. He was bribery, extortion, all of it. But he knew it was built into the system. And I'm pretty sure if you go out and find some Trump documentaries, because that's how I learned about it. I learned about it from documentaries that mention Trump. That the mafia were controlling all the unions. You couldn't build anything, and they would shut down. They would make a phone call and on job sites. They would get you to start building a job site. They make a phone call to the union and say, don't do anything. Don't you pick up one hammer. Don't you pick up one brick. And then they would reach out to the corporation and say, I see you got an issue with your construction site. I can fix that for you. Go ahead and cut me a $20,000 check. And then that's just business as usual in New York. They cut the $20,000 check, and then everybody went back to work. And this is what Trump had to do to get all of that real estate built. So he is, by design, this is what he's used to. He learned business from the mafia.
Actually, his dad went through it. He learned watching his dad.
You got it. His dad taught it to him. Because even in the 60s and you got it in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the union still controlled the mafia. So his dad taught him, well, you got to pay this. You got to pay this person. Make sure you pay this person. Make sure you get this approval. You don't want to upset anybody. He has been dealing with the mafia since day one of his real estate empire. So why do you think? Go ahead.
That a lot of those guys, when you ever see those mafia guys try to go clean, they're never accepted. Kind of like Pablo and the rest of those mafia people when they try to go. Even what was the Godfather? That famous quote is, "As soon as I get out, they bring
They
me
pull
right
me back in."
Yeah, so he's definitely a mafia down, but the rest of the country is I think they're so nationalistic and political, they don't even know how to respond. I think the only people that really know how to respond naturally is Z and Putin.
Well, that's the statement that I'm getting back to, because somebody said there's the 5 families of the global, and they mentioned the U.S. Putin would be number 2. Who was the third? He gave 3. Oh,
Z,
China.
yeah,
Xing from China would be 3, and that's all he gave. But I'm gonna try to speculate on who the other 2 are. Now, one I have, but it's kind of like a micro boss, you know. But I think Netanyahu is the 4th. I think Netanyahu controls the Middle East indirectly because of their connection to the U.S. Because they know the U.S. is going to back them no matter what. So I think Netanyahu is number 4. But I think that the 5th one has to be either from Africa or South America. Any thoughts on this? If we were to pick the 5 families that control the underworld of the global economy, who do you guys think it is? It's either
yeah,
gonna be, go ahead.
South America or Africa, but I think more so South America because we've got too much. Guyana and the rest of those guys, they're doing a whole lot more out there than what used to be done out there in Africa.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna give you 2 people that came up because Aramit. I'd never say this name right. Eritrea. Is that how you say it?
I'm lost. Which would you?
There's an African country
It's
called
Eritrea.
Eritrea or Eritrea.
Eritrea. I've been there. It's Eritrea.
Eritrea, that's it. A lot of people don't know, but that is where what's the female comedian that nobody likes? She was running. She was doing the runway with the Hilton sisters and got kicked out.
Not sure.
So Soul Plane. With that Kevin Hart. What's her name? You guys don't know that they convinced her. The Hilton sisters took her to a runway. And they got her kicked out on purpose. Oh, you can go. You can do the runway, and then she went and did the runway. Got kicked out. I can't remember her freaking name. But she's from Eritrea. But anyway, Eritrea right now is going through a genocide, and that's why I say they may be one of the fifth ones. But I'm also looking up South America because there is a very I'm looking up the most corrupt country in South America, and I think it might be either Brazil or Venezuela. Let me put in corrupt leader.
Was you talking about Tiffany Haddish?
Tiffany Haddish, that's her. The reason why I'm bringing this particular person up is because he has been controlling. He basically is a dictator. So whenever there's an election, and there was an election about a year ago or 2 years ago, and everybody voted against this dude. It was clear, but he still won. And they were like, wait a minute. Like everybody voted against him. But they knew it was corrupt because he still won the election. So he's now going to his third term. And I think the term lasts like 8 years, right? They have an 8-year term or 6-year or 8-year term. So he just took over the third election, his third term. Most definitely that, everybody voted against him. But I can't remember the country. Let me see. Let me look up voting corruption. This might be our fifth. Venezuela. That's it. I knew it was either Venezuela or Brazil. Maduro. Maduro's election fraud may be Latin America's biggest ever. Maduro may be the fifth mafia boss, underworld. But I found that very interesting. I'm like, oh yeah. And like I said, Netanyahu is indirectly controlling the Middle East. Right? He can't control it directly, but indirectly, Netanyahu is controlling the Middle East. You would think with all the oil, any of the OPEC countries, Saudi Arabia, any of that would control it, but it's not. And that's just my opinion. If anybody has any other opinion, I'll take it. But I'm pretty sure Netanyahu is the boss of that region. I don't know who the fifth boss is. It's either going to be Maduro, and let me look up the leader of Eritrea. I never know if I'm saying it right. Eritrea, that's it. Eritrea leader, because it's heavy corruption there. They have evidence that he is heavily corrupt. Isaiah Afwerki. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Heavy corruption. I'm trying to find an article. Oh, I didn't put the word corruption.
I don't know how it wouldn't be Maduro.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
He's for a company that has that, for a country that has that much oil, and for that.
Thank you.
It's just a shame.
And I want to bring that point up because that's something that just doesn't make sense. It defies any causal sequence, any supply and demand. It doesn't make sense. It literally has the most oil reserves. their currency is in the toilet. And keep in mind, guys, the U.S. caused that over 20 years ago. There's no way that Venezuela should not have bounced back from that with as much oil as they have. So I think, and I've seen articles, I've done research trying to figure out why Venezuela is so much in the dumps with all their oil, because he's selling it on the back end. He's selling it like it's his own private reserve. So they're still selling the oil. The government is not getting it. He's selling that oil to cartels. He's
China.
selling that oil individually, and he's pocketing it personally. Go ahead.
No, you're absolutely correct. I was just piggybacking. You're absolutely correct. I was just thinking about that when you were saying it, because he didn't have any oil tankers, and we used to have that area monitored heavily about any oil tankers or any boats that was coming up that way, which China did. And I think they were testing it, and nothing happened. So he's definitely a U.S. plant, definitely a plant.
And his job is to keep that, because keep in mind, it's all about oil. Oil is the first domino, and we got to make sure that we're keeping that country in pocket. Now, here's the other side of it. Wasn't Venezuela one of the original OPEC?
I think so.
So think about that also, that we also have that maybe even OPEC wants to keep them in pocket. So either way, he's a plant. Because Venezuela should be thriving. And I keep telling you guys that even if you look at these oil-rich countries, why do none of them look like Emirates? Why do none of them look like Dubai? They should have gold-layered skyscrapers in every Middle Eastern country. That whole area should be gold-plated.
They don't want any more powerful Saudi families. They know what they did.
Well, but if you look at the great migration they had and the poverty and then the violence last year when the election, that's why it's like it's got to be that dude. I mean, that they've got, if you ever look at videos of their land, they have some beautiful lands, especially around the coast.
Yes. But in the news, they only show the desert. They only show the war-torn areas. But all of that should look, and I'm gonna bring something up that a light bulb's gonna go off. There is no middle class in those regions. You're either extremely rich or you're dirt poor.
No matter what your job. I know a family of doctors from there.
Yep.
and a couple of engineers.
Yep.
And it's just like, wow.
And I'm gonna bring up the infrastructure of Dubai. All you gotta do is go look this up. They also don't have a middle class because they have their little, city of gold, right? Highest high rises in the world. You can get an apartment there, very expensive, especially during that 2008. Man, they were selling those high rises, looking over that man-made, island. For like $5 million, $10 million for a small little condo. But what they have is and this kind of takes you back a little bit to kind of the culture of black people coming out of the slavery, is that they had the rich white people, and over in Dubai, they got the rich, oil barons, and then they have a community of workers that they migrate into to be the chefs and the butlers and the chauffeurs and the maids. They have and I'm gonna give you an example. If you ever go to Miami or go to the Keys, especially the Keys, if you go to the Florida Keys, and some of my people in Florida might be able to confirm this, the Keys is a very rich area. It's where the rich go to retire, right? They get to see the beach every single day. So there's all this tourism, all this money and property and money everywhere. And then they have a small little poor community of the workers, the janitors, the teachers. And if you go to any high society like that, that's what you're going to find. If you go to San Francisco, one of the most richest areas in the United States, they have a small little community of workers. They don't want a middle class. So all you got to do is look at the Middle East and you can kind of see the direction of this country. Venezuela doesn't have a middle class. I don't even think Israel has a middle class. Any thoughts?
Going to need a financial and economic literacy just to be a part of the middle class.
Yep. So I think that is the agenda. Everything is pointing towards that because nothing makes sense. Not one decision that man has made since he got into office benefits the economy. And that's what we're talking about, guys. This is not political. We're always going to bring it back to the economy, bring it back to the stock market. And I have not seen one executive order that has brought benefit to our economy. And that's why I said on day one, we're going to feel the effects in another 4 years. Now, here's something else that somebody brought up. That Trump signed an executive order. And I don't think it was an executive order. I think it was some kind of an agreement. Because that holds a lot more weight. Because executive orders can get voted out. But somebody mentioned that Trump has policies in place for the Gulf of Mexico. So when he got into office, because and those agreements that he made was to limit production in the Gulf of Mexico. Biden came in and put in more limitations on pumping in the Gulf of Mexico. So when Trump came into office, he only reversed Biden's agreements. But the point that the person was making is that Trump's agreements are still in place. We've never heard anything about Trump reversing his own limitations of pumping. And like I said, these are some of the little loopholes, guys, that if somebody wanted to challenge some of the things that Trump is doing, there are so many loopholes sitting out there that somebody can say, well, here is a loophole, here's a loophole. And that just goes back to what I was saying, is that you have a president with as much resources as he has. You have the most, the highest level of lawyers. You have the highest levels of financial advisors. You have the highest level of military. You have the best of the best. And you're not using those resources because even as something as simple as why are you not wearing a suit? Like, you can go research that. That's common knowledge. And then you look like an idiot when somebody does commentary on the news or on social media. You look incompetent. And there was a couple other of these kind of things where you should know this. This is common knowledge. Or when we go and that's something else. At this point, anybody in that administration should know we're going to go look it up. Why do you continue to try to gaslight us? And I'm going to tell you why. Because once again, they know that their followers are not going to go look it up. And all they got to do is say fake news when we do. I'm trying to find a benefit. I'm trying to find a way to make this make sense. A couple of more dominoes have to fall to see, but everything is pointing towards 2025 is going to wipe out a lot of the profits that we made in 2024. When I told you guys that all that value is coming, we may not see it until 2026, 2027. I thought sure that this was going to be the year of all years.
Well, you did say that he was going to bring in 4 down years.
Well, keep in mind, my time period has been so off. I'm expecting it to be 4 years, but I was basing that on his presidency. but I have to go back and look at the metrics of where we are in our economic cycle. We may already be, at the end of our 4 years up, which would make more sense. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, 4 years up, 4 years down.
Yeah, our presidential cycle doesn't always have to match the economic cycle. So I would go back and see where our economic cycle was. Where did our 4 years up start? And if we already are into that and we're coming at the end of that 4 years, then literally we don't have to wait 4 years for it. It may happen this year or next year. And that breaks my heart, man, because I was ready to make money. And I should have known that that was going to be the case because we came into this year and the markets were bearish. The markets kind of whispered to us. As we transition into 2025, it was a bear market at the end of the year last year. Does anybody remember that? I was so sure that we were going to end the year on a positive a bull rally. Didn't happen.
Yeah, growth and value is going to take a back seat for a while.
You got it. But my thing is, and this is where the skill comes in. The skill comes in because right now we're staying out of the markets, letting everything settle down, but we're also allowing the markets to regenerate a new rhythm based on the tariffs, right? Based on everything that's happening. The markets adjust. Once we get that new rhythm, maybe because we talked about that 44,500, all of that stuff is going to recalculate, whether we get the correction or not. So we're going to have a brand new market after these tariffs. It's going to reset everything. It may not reset the actual value, but it is going to kind of reset, or not reset, but give us a new frequency, a new rhythm. And so all we got to do is settle down and then watch the markets again. Find that new rhythm, find that new range, find our new median of where the markets are going to settle. And then in a bear market, and we've heard this enough times, we trade the dips. But we're not looking, when I say trade the dips, because I don't like that term. When I talk about trading the dips, I'm looking more so on a long term or intermediate. That's the best terminology. So what I mean is, we're not trading the dips on day or weeks. We're not trading dips on year long or even quarterly. But if we can find that happy area where we can find a range for, like I said, I showed you guys the calendar. I put that inside of your courses where you have that train schedule. You have the months that are bullish and bearish. So if you can figure out bullish months, even though we might be going through somewhat of a bear market sometime soon, we can find when the markets are retracing or pulling back, and they're going to give us that nice bull rally. And if we can find a way to find a kill box for that small little period, it may be a week, something happens, Nvidia comes out with something, we're going to have those moments that's going to infuse the markets bullish. We can trade that little time period, and then we're back out as the markets are tumbling again. So this is where the real skill comes in, where that timing, that range, that rhythm, that frequency. And I think that's going to be where we're going to be for the foreseeable future. All right. Any final questions before we get into the final challenge for the 30-day challenge? I think we hit on everything, guys. We hit on the dollar, we hit on the oil, we hit on the labor, we hit on the consumer spending. We kind of went geopolitics on trade agreements. Did I miss anything? Geopolitics, relationships, go ahead.
I think Europe is shorting the U.S. stocks. I'm starting to go down this rabbit hole, and maybe you could, and Coach, I'm gonna need you to pull me from the ledge again. But, I really think those guys are mounting up, especially what I saw with Zelensky, Trudeau. They too palsy over there. They've got way too much confidence, and Trudeau hasn't left yet. So I really think those guys are. And then 7 o'clock, I think they're going to really manipulate our markets. I think they are more so than any other country.
Yeah, and I think that 7 o'clock is exactly what you're saying. I think that's the end of the European markets closing. And I'm gonna sometime this week, if I, like I said, once this challenge is over, I'm freeing up more time, so I'm gonna look that up. I got to figure out what that 7 o'clock is. But you can also look at the foreign markets from, and we've been showing you this from like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning to that 7 o'clock. That is very bullish. Like it's very calm. There's no major manipulation. So I'm agreeing with you. I think the European markets, even the other foreign markets, are kind of benefiting from our market. But I also think that they're not getting involved. I think that they have found the secret that we are now stumbling into. That the real calm, predictable, organic market is overnight. I think
Asia.
I think they're benefiting from the organic market from like 2 a.m. to about 6, and I think they're shorting 7 o'clock moving forward.
Well,
There was
we're creeping, they're creeping. Yeah.
Yeah. I also wonder if Trudeau is going to backtrack, because with all of this going on, I don't see people wanting him to leave. So just wait for that. I'm not 100% sure that Trudeau is going to leave like he said he was, because he left thinking that he was leaving the country in good hands and in a good condition. But with the tariffs now in place, and he understands and knows Trump and Trump's administration, because he dealt with it on the last term, right? So I think that he is equipped. And if they do let him go, he may because we know that even previous presidents are used as advisors. So if they do let him go, they're going to put him in an advisory role. Well, he'll still be able to give his input on what needs to happen in the future. But at this time, I don't think it's healthy to bring in somebody new who may not understand, how Trump works and his mindset and all of that. So I think Trudeau might backtrack on leaving, but we'll see how that goes. I think that might be it. Let's go ahead and get into our last day of the 30-day challenge. Let me pull it up. All right. We have arrived at the final day, guys. Take a deep breath. We're right here at the finish line. Day 30. We're continuing our focus on trading predictions. All right, let's recap. We went over the education portion, right? We found our framework. We found out everything that we need to do. We went over our education, learning the different things that we need to know. And then now we're taking our education, we're taking our analysis, and now we're teaching you how to accurately predict what the market's going to do. Now, let's lock this in, because we're going to show you how we have that precision, how we have that level of accuracy that nobody else in the stock market has. We have a very unique and custom way of analyzing to guarantee our trades. And we're gonna use the words of Ray Dalio, literally the best to ever do it. Some would even say that Ray Dalio has a better track record than Warren Buffett. So here's the advice that he gives. Focusing strictly on the logical cause and effect relationships was what allowed us to see what was really going on. So what is this cause effect relationships? That's what I teach. We call it the causal sequence. And you understand it better as the domino effect. You set up the dominoes, you let the first domino fall, and you know for a fact that those dominoes are going to go in sequence all the way until the inevitable conclusion of the last domino falling. This is how we predict. So let's keep this going by quoting Ray Dalio again as we establish our daily assignment. We want to learn causal sequence for labor. And this is the perfect quote as we move into our next set in our 90-day masterclass. But here's the advice that Ray Dalio gives. If we never looked at the data, we should be able to describe the cause-effect relationships and the logic behind it. Think about this, guys. I've explained this several times in this curriculum. I've shown you that cause and effect relationships, causal sequence is common sense. You can do it in your brain. And that's what Ray Dalio is telling us. We don't have to know the data. Give us one data point, and then we can figure out what the inevitable conclusion is. Give us the first domino, and we can already figure out what the last domino is, and then we can just logically, common sense, figure out what the dominoes are in the middle. And then I've even explained that sometimes you don't have to know the dominoes in the middle. It's not required because the whole premise of the domino effect is they have to fall. So you only have to confirm a couple of data points at the very beginning and the last domino, and then the rest just fall on their own. So once again, Ray Dalio says, we never looked at the data. We just used the logical concept of causal sequence relationships. And that is what I teach. That is what you guys are learning, to give you that precision, that accuracy. And once again, nobody else can do this. We can guarantee our trades. So how do we find the causal sequence of labor, right? Labor is the engine for economic development. So by monitoring and calculating labor metrics, we can begin the causal sequence to see how the workforce will impact future production, future revenue, and future growth, right? So we want to find those labor metrics which come out weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, all of those economic announcements. And this week is a perfect opportunity for us to find those. And the first thing that you have to do, kind of going back to the education, you want to know what each one of those employment rates are. All right. I'm going to post something in the student room, the master classroom for the students to be able to figure out what all those different rates are. I'll post a video and different types of education for you. But you want to know what those metrics are, what those metrics mean, how those metrics connect. And you want to be able to weekly and bi-weekly be able to find those metrics. All right. Step 2. We now want to analyze the labor inside of the supply chain. We have the economic reports, but now we have to go a little bit deeper and find the labor in the supply chain, because every consumer product has a supply chain. Every single product has a workforce that created that product. This is the beautiful part about what we teach. The inevitable. Every consumer product has labor. Without it, the product would not get made. So we analyze the labor in the supply chain, and here's how we do it. Labor begins in the credit line. Every supply chain has a credit line. On that credit line, they're going to put the oil, they're going to put the raw materials, and they're going to put their payroll. And then they're going to make a decision on how much payroll, how much workforce they're going to hire based on the interest rates on that credit line. And then the banks will also give them fees. So they're going to calculate all of the rates and fees for that credit line. They're going to calculate the total amount of the payroll, and then they're going to hire based on that. So now that they have a speculation or a prediction of how much labor they're going to hire, they're now going to put that into the supply chain to build a production. And based on the amount of labor, that's going to determine how much production is going to come out of it. So analyzing interest rates on the credit line, as well as bringing in those labor metrics, will give the data needed to predict future company production and revenue. Now We're going to analyze that production and revenue. This is step 3. Inside supply chain, there is a set process for production. Think about it, guys. Every step of that supply chain is a domino in the causal sequence. And labor is one of the primary dominoes. And then at the end of that causal sequence, we get inventory, right? The production ends with the final product and how much final product we're going to have. So the production output can then be used as another domino for another causal sequence. Let's show it to you. You go through the causal sequence of the supply chain to find the final domino of inventory. And then now that inventory is another domino in revenue, in growth, in market value. Do we see how this works? So that's how we input the analyzing production and revenue. It's just another domino as we get to the final outcome of market value. Step 4. We can also factor in, if we keep going past the supply chain, we're going to get into the consumer spending, because the whole point of the production and the inventory is to sell it to the consumer. So now we continue our causal sequence going into the consumer spending. And here's how this works. In any economy, you have a worker. We already talked about that as the foundation of the economy, right? Workers, workers, workers. Well, think about this. The worker is also a consumer. And those two positions are directly correlated, because the worker will take the income and then use it to buy products and services. So this shows you the importance of looking at those labor metrics, because it's not only going to show you the health of the labor market or the health of the industry sector and the supply chain, but if you keep going through the causal sequence, it's also going to show you the health of our economy through consumer spending. Simple, simple, simple. So here is the secret of the causal sequence of our labor market. When analyzing the economy, a supply chain, a product, or a commodity, any industry or corporation, labor is a primary domino in any of these causal sequences. The secret is to view everyone as a worker and consumer, giving you a broader perspective on the economy's inflows and outflows, how much money is being earned, how much money is being spent. And between looking at any individual person as a worker and a consumer, you can do a dual analysis. Once again, quoting Ray Dalio, we can do it through logic, through common sense in our brain. We don't need a pencil, paper, and pen. We don't need a computer. We don't need a chart. We don't need financial reports. We can go through a natural, organic causal sequence to figure out the final outcome, doing that dual analysis to find out what's happening in the economy and in the stock market. And the final outcome will be supply and demand, or value. We have arrived, guys. We have finished the 30-day challenge. I hope you guys learned a lot. I hope you saw the benefit of going through this step by step. And I hope you see the benefit of continuing into the 90-day masterclass. We're going to continue doing this. And we're going to bring in every single thing. You guys already know the curriculum. You guys bought the course. You have the workbook. You have the curriculum. We're now going to application. How do we use it? Because it can sit in that workbook, you know, for as long as it needs, but you got to be able to pull it out of that workbook and find the correct application of it. And that's what we're doing with this 90-day masterclass. So I want to welcome everybody to join either the masterclass or the subscription. You just got to reach out to me, let me know that you want to join, and we'll figure out a way to get you in. I also want to say this. We're now going into the next 30 days of 30-day simulation. We're now going to take everything that we learned from the 30-day challenge, and now we're even applying that. We're now going to practice it. We're going to train with it inside of simulation. So we're going to establish that tomorrow. I already got the workbook ready, getting you ready for simulation for the next 30 days. We're not going to be posting every single day like we did on this one, because this is no longer the challenge. So we're going to be posting periodically throughout the week. At this point, probably every 2 days, but none of this is going to be posted on social media anymore. Everything past this point is not free. Everything past this point is a part of the 90-day masterclass. So if you want to be a part of this, you either have to buy the masterclass outright, and if you already own a course, you're not going to pay $1,200. You just got to reach out to me and say, hey, Aaron, I want to continue this. Let me know. Or you can limp in with the subscription. If you don't have the money to pay for the full amount, I can get you in on the subscription. And eventually you'll end up paying for the masterclass with the subscription. So I'll leave that up to you guys. Now's the time to get in, as you don't want to break the momentum that we've accumulated over the 30 days. Also, at the end of this week, on Saturday at 1 o'clock, we will be having the Fibonacci Secret webinar. I've already cleared it with my friend. He will be joining us in that webinar. He's going to be a guest speaker, and he's going to give us a little bit of an understanding of how the Fibonacci sequence directly affects the markets and our trading. I'm excited because I haven't even heard what he's going to explain. Everybody will get a copy of his book. There's going to be an extended version. It's going to be about 2 hours. The price is $150. Once again, you guys know me. I don't want your money. I want your success. So if you want to be a part of that, you just got to let me know. I need a little bit of somebody paying, because I want to make sure that I take care of him. But that's what I'm worried about, making sure he's taken care of if he's going to come and do a speaking arrangement. So, like I said, $150 Saturday at 1 o'clock. I'm going to create the event probably this evening. So tomorrow that will be available on the website, that you guys can book that Fibonacci webinar Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. All right. Anybody on TikTok, anybody on YouTube that wants to be a part of that Fibonacci secret. When I talk about secret, it's a secret. I'm going to blow your mind if you have never taken that before. I'm going to show you things that you're not going to learn anywhere else. And that's the guarantee. I'll give you your money back. If I don't teach you something new or teach you something that you can't learn anywhere else, I'm going to blow your mind with what I'm going to teach you in this Fibonacci secret webinar. Nobody else knows this. I view the stock market like a puzzle, and I solved the puzzle. I solved the stock market. So hopefully I get some new students. There's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of new information. So those of you that are already taking it, I promise you, you're going to learn more. You're going to learn more than what you've learned when you previously took it. I'm going to update the workbook. So you're going to get a brand new workbook. You're going to get a copy of his book. And then hopefully we'll be able to talk more about what we learned in that webinar inside of the Zoom. All right, we're going to start applying the Fibonacci sequence, the range, the rhythm, the frequency. Like I said, I wanted to do it as early as possible, so we have it as a foundation as we move forward, whether you're inside the masterclass or not. We're going to apply that Fibonacci secret to everything we're going to do moving forward. Do we have any final questions, guys? I'm going to go ahead and get off of TikTok and YouTube. But if we have any final questions from the students, I'll take them. I'll see everybody on TikTok tomorrow, guys. Enjoy your day. Be safe.